I don't know who did it. I don't know if they're in here. If they are, you could just raise your hand like we did when we were in nursery and we said here. There's an article that came out that said I don't go on visits. Okay. My approach, it's totally different than many coaches' approach. Sometimes I'm a businessman as well, so I try to save our university money every darn chance I get. So for me to go to, let's just say I'm going to Florida and I'm visiting whatever school, IMG. You don't think those coaches going to be a little upset if I don't come by the school down the street? You don't think it's going to be pandemonium if I'm going to get naysayed if I don't go another 45 minutes? Then if I go to that one, then I go, well, I didn't come to that school. Now the coach is mad, so he's not going to let the kid come because he's mad because I chose that, go to that school over that school. See, other coaches, they could do that, but I can't. And I've really pretty much done a personal survey. I really, truly, in all my heart, believe that parents don't want me at their house. They want to come see my house. They want to see how I live, how I get down. They want to see what I got going on, what God has done in my life. I know when I was in college, I did not want Bobby Bowden in my house because I knew after 7 o'clock it was going to be rats and roaches on parade doing their thing. So that was just straight up, honestly. I didn't. So that never transpired. That never happened for me. And we target mostly guys that's in the portal. When do you make visits to portal guys' homes? Anybody do that? Do they do that? I don't do. Anybody? Have you guys heard of that? I don't. I think when a guy is in his 20s and he has 1 and 2 more shots, he don't give a darn about the picture. He don't give a darn about the parade that you want to take him on. He wants to know, okay, how are you going to use me? How can you help me get to the league? And what am I going to get paid? That's it. That's the world we live in now. I have never heard one guy say, I chose this college because this coach came by my crib. Have you? It's different now. The parents, I love them, and I want to show them Boulder. I want them to see this and how beautiful it is and why I'm so eager and how much I love this city and this state and this team. I want them to see that because guess what? That's where the kid is coming. Kid coming here. Going there is just showcase for me. That's just blowing money. Just blowing a bag. Don't make sense. And I can't do the things other coaches can do. You know why? I'm Coach Prime. And I didn't stutter when I said it.
Welcome into a new Buff Stampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com, joined by football analyst William Gardner. William, the last time I saw you, we recorded our spring ball preview segment in Boulder, and then we made it over to the Dark Horse. It was on a Tuesday, so it was tough for a lot of people to get out to that event, but still really nice to get a chance to catch up with some different subscribers of Buff Stampede.
Yeah, that was a fun night, starting out over at the library with all the other guys and doing the various podcasts in a row. I'd still like you to get do one of those and have the heckle mic set up so that people not doing a podcast can heckle others. But I thought it went pretty well, and it was a lot of fun to go over to the Dark Horse and get a really good burger and meet some of the people. You know, so shout out to the Dark Horse here. A little product placement. Get some sponsorship here.
You're working for that NIL money, aren't you?
Hey man, I'm telling you, get a few followers and see if I can't get 50 cents or $1.
Well, the great thing is now we have some spring practices to react to. Colorado conducted 3 spring practices last week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The first 2 were in shorts, and then Fridays was in pads. And now they're on spring break. So just kind of a little bit of a start and then a break. And then April is going to be a month full of spring practices. They'll have 13 in that month. And we got a chance to do a lot of interviews, William. We got a chance to look at some of the practices through social media in Coach Prime's media team. let's spend some time just kind of sharing our overall thoughts. Anything that jumped out to you initially from the first week of spring ball?
Well, I think they got off to a lot faster start, and it seemed like everybody felt more comfortable. Like a year ago, everybody was kind of, even the guys that weren't new were kind of new. I mean, the guys that were still there from the previous year were with a new staff and didn't really know what was going on. And as it turned out, most of them didn't stick around. But, the staff was new. Everybody, it's like Coach Prime talks about with freshmen on the campus figuring everything out and learning how to do it. And this time around, I thought Coach Prime looked a lot more comfortable to me. There's a whole different intensity and competition. And I would preface everything by saying, look, it's 3 practices, man. It's one in full pads. We don't know anything from that first week. So anybody trying to read too much into those tea leaves, I think my experience from all the years of football is that, spring practices, especially the first week of spring practice, almost means nothing. And the first week or two of fall practice almost means nothing too. You can't do anything with those depth charts. It doesn't mean anything. But what I did see was we are freaking huge on the offensive line. Those are some big dudes, which is a whole different look from last year. There seemed to be an entirely different intensity and competition and some little bit of fighting, which I don't have a problem with. And the offensive line putting up some fight, and the defensive line putting up some fight. So I just think there's a lot more competition because there's a lot more talent. So there's a lot more on the line. It's when you have legitimate fear that somebody's going to take your job or that you're not going to win a job, it gives you that little more extra edge. And I think we were seeing that this spring because there is more competition at every position.
Yeah, it was a year ago where guys were basically getting their first impression on this staff, and there was a whole lot of sorting through that had to get done. And now you've got kind of the meat of your football team on campus. But I'd kind of forgotten how thin they were going to be at receiver this spring until we talked with new receivers coach Jason Phillips after their first practice. Knew that Will Shepherd wasn't going to be on campus till the summer. Knew Cordell Russell wasn't going to be on campus this summer. Knew Draylon Miller and Cam McKell were not early enrollees because both those guys ended up playing basketball and both had a lot of success with their basketball teams this winter. But didn't know Jimmy Horn was going to be dealing with a hamstring injury. And so it was a lot less available guys in that position group. You start kind of adding up all of that. There's not a whole lot there, especially when you consider the fact that Travis Hunter is also splitting time and playing cornerback a lot of the time. So with that opportunity, it was great to hear that Omarion Miller has really stepped up and taken advantage of those extra reps. And I saw 3 different plays on the different social medias where they were pretty impressive catches that he made. And because they are bringing in Shepherd, they already brought in LaJohntay Wester, who was another guy that turned heads during the first week of camp, like we expected. And you got Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn. I don't know how many balls Omarion Miller catches in his second year at Colorado, but it's pretty clear that he's continuing to be a budding star in this program.
Well, one of the things you have to do if you're going to be a great player is take advantage of your opportunities. Some people like Travis Hunter, don't need opportunities because they're that much better than everybody else. But most other guys, when you get an opportunity like this with guys out, you got to step up and show something, So I think that's another position where there's going to be a lot more competition over the summer and into the fall. And who knows how it's going to wind up. But it's going to be one of those things where it's hard to know what you can take away from spring because some of the top dogs are not going to be there.
And, sticking with the skill players in this program, Alton McCaskill showed he's got that burst back. That was exactly what we were expecting to see based on all of his comments. Alton McCaskill's been active on his YouTube channel, answering questions from fans. And he's kind of admitted that he wasn't ready last year and has talked about how that he's fully over that injury now. And I think you still got to get hit a few times, William, to kind of, and he got a few reps in a couple games, played late in that Oregon game last year. But I think now that you're back to full speed, kind of getting a little bit more of that physical rust off, but it sounds really encouraging with what both he and Dylan Edwards have done in terms of getting themselves ready for 2024.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very solid offensive or a running back room, and I think that part of the thing for a guy like McCaskill's not only when you get back to full speed, but fitting your full speed in with the linemen and everything else that's happening, so that if you're a half a step behind before, now you're not, and then that changes sort of the dynamics of how you all mesh together. So getting those practices in and getting in there. But, Syvion Wilkerson still looks good. I still think we need another guy in there with only four scholarship guys, but we'll see what happens with that in the next portal period. And the other spot is like one of those edge positions. You got to figure it's going to go to BJ Green. He's not out there yet either, so it's an opportunity for some guys to show some things before he gets there as well.
Yeah, still waiting on some guys. Sam Hart is a recent tight end commit that they got. He's not going to be on campus till the summer. He's coming in from Ohio State. But again, you have so much more of the bulk of your roster now than you did last spring. I mean, I have to go back and do the research, but I can't imagine more than like 35% of those guys were from the returning group. I think it was only 5 returning scholarship guys that ended up coming back from Carl Durrell's last year.
Well, and some of the guys that transferred right out after spring. So, and then, in large respect, it almost feels like many of those practices were wasted, since most of those guys got a lot of reps that didn't end up being on the team, much less not playing. And, I don't know. I also can't get over the difference. I don't know. What the offensive line we saw last spring ended up being relatively different than what we saw in the fall at the guards positions at any rate. And what we're seeing out there this spring is entirely different in terms of size, athleticism, nastiness, so I don't know. It's encouraging. It's three practices. I don't think I could draw any conclusions from all of it, except that I like the fight in it. I was impressed with what I could see, and again, I'm not there, so I can only go with the videos I see and whatever. But I was impressed with Phil Lodeholt, who is an entirely different coach than I think I blanked his name, but
Bill O'Boyle.
O'Boyle. I was trying to have a little, that was a self-defense mechanism, man. You wrecked it. But watching Lodeholt, he has an entirely different credibility, having played in the NFL and been at Oklahoma last year and what have you. But I like his style of coaching, which is tough, but also caring. He didn't have any hesitation in chewing out his starters or whatever, and using a little bit of harsh language, which is something I would never do personally. But I appreciate it, and especially like watching him work with those tackles. Learning that stuff from a guy who did play offensive tackle in the NFL for several years. You got to figure he can be able to teach them the little things and the technique issues and what have you. It was interesting to me watching the offensive line. Jordan Seaton is clearly a prime talent and going to be a fantastic player, but he is also, to my eye, is well behind in terms of technique, which you would expect. Obviously, I'm not dogging him for that. I'm just saying it's visible to me, and he's learned to sit his butt down and get his back up and sit more straight. But like I was watching him do a drill next to Yakiri Walker, and the difference was noticeable. So as he starts to put that together, he's going to become even more formidable.
Did you happen to get a chance to watch Jordan Seaton's press conference that he did?
I did not see that.
Okay. When we get done recording this, if you've got a few minutes, go watch it. It's something that Brian and I were commenting on afterwards, that it was just shocking how comfortable he was in that setting. And he's supposed to be in high school right now, right? And
right.
He's now protecting maybe the top quarterback that will be drafted in 2025.
Right.
And he's doing that in his first spring. And that pressure, I don't think most guys could handle. And he said some of the off the field stuff can get a little stressful at times, but he's certainly got the right mindset coming into this. And, when Coach Prime says, keep the main thing, that's a message that seems to really have resonated with Jordan Seaton, because he's able to have some of those outside things going on and not let it take away from what he's trying to get accomplished between the lines. And the other interesting thing that he said is that all these coaches that were recruiting him were telling him how great he was and how he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. But he comes to Colorado, and Coach Prime had some things that he wanted Jordan Seaton to improve on. And
Right.
it was kind of along with the message of, I don't care if you come here, but these are things that are going to help you get him better as a
Right.
player. And so just as Coach Prime has said, he doesn't really have a sales pitch. He just explains to them what it's going to be and the opportunities that they provide at Colorado. And Jordan Seaton was able to see through a lot of the BS during the recruiting process. And I think this is a match made in heaven.
Well, I must have seen a report or a write-up on it, because I did see Jordan talking about saying something to the effect that, I came here and Coach Prime gave me things to make me better at my game rather than, tell me how great I am. And I took those things and applied them to my season. And it showed me that even before I had committed, that he cared about me as a person, and it wasn't even on his team yet. So, I mean, I think that'll I'm gonna come back to this a little bit in one of our next topics here in a minute. But, that's one of the things about Coach Prime and his recruiting approach is he's real and he's human and he talks to them as human beings. But going back to Jordan Seaton in terms of being a left tackle, left tackle is one of those positions, like cornerback and such, where you got to be able to forget and you got to have a hell of a lot of confidence, right? Because you're going to get beat. Sooner or later, you're going to get beat, and you got to be able to just step back up and keep doing it and play again and get better. So having that kind of, a lot of times, everybody keeps saying, well, Caden Proctor started every game in Alabama. Okay, well, he's one guy. Does that mean Jordan Seaton's going to do it? We don't know. We'll wait and see. But a big part of it, to me, as much of it really is mental and emotional, and how you handle yourself and handle learning the playbook and the technique and everything, as much as it is the physical part, because Jordan's got all the physical part. Now he needs to figure out the mental part. The only thing I would say that I don't see yet so far is that physical first strike with his punch. He's a little bit tentative and kind of catches, but he'll get better at that.
Phil Lodeholt said before they even started the first spring practices that we don't have any starters right now. But I mean, there is kind of from a talent standpoint, there's kind of a clear hierarchy, right? You've got your Kerry Walker, part of that first group. He was running at center with the first team offense. You've got Justin Mayers playing both left guard, right guard. Tyler Brown playing, it looked like he was at left guard this past week. Tyler Johnson it looks like most likely right guard, but we'll see. And then, Seaton was getting the work with the first team at left tackle and Khalil Benson at right tackle. No real surprises there. They're expected to keep adding through the portal, and the O-line is a position. They have good top end depth, but when you go into a preseason, don't you usually want about probably 15 offensive linemen at least on scholarship?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like 16 or 17 ideally, but that's back in the old days when you had 3 or 4 of them were true freshmen, percolating up in the mix. But, I think we've got some real depth here. I mean, in the very limited number of plays we saw in the various videos and stuff, the guy that stood out to me was Justin Mayers. That guy, and I was comparing on one of my posts, the same play that Jordan Seaton had a good play. I said, watch both of these guys come off the ball and watch when Justin Mayers makes first contact and the guy stops and is jolted and his head snaps, and you really see the difference in the physicality and the violence of how he plays. Now, that being said, I also saw Phil Lodeholt drop the F-bomb on him a few times and really lay into him and tell him you're better than that. So I don't know what that was about, but I like that Lodeholt doesn't hold back and expects a lot of these guys. So Mayers, I think, is the one that sort of jumped out of me. The guy that Khalil Benson is a guy that when you see him just standing there, you're like, damn, that's a big human being, man. So I like what I see, and I think there's, I don't think we've heard the last of Savion Washington. I like what I see of Kerry Walker. He looks clearly big enough to me. I'm just kind of looking at the list here.
What do you think about what do you think about Phil Houston? Is he kind of a dark horse candidate to be part of the, whether it be, probably more likely a backup, right?
Well, it's funny. That's just the name I was going to mention. That
Okay.
In a couple of plays, I saw him at that right tackle spot, and he didn't look bad to me. So, I mean, but potentially you got Washington and Benson and Houston all fighting at that right tackle spot, and I think they'll probably bounce some of them and try them at left tackle too, because you can't base the whole thing on Seaton at left tackle if he gets hurt, right? But so I think there's a lot of guys that I saw Kareem Harden out there. He was huge and has played a little bit. So there's a lot of guys. I'm just looking at this list. Tyler Brown, Justin Mayers are going to figure in at those guard spots. I think Yakiri Walker has I'm not going to say he has the center spot, because if I say that, somebody will hold me to it. But I think it's his to lose at this point, and he looks pretty good out there. And depending on the connection with him and well, I can't remember everybody's name now.
Let me ask you a question, William. Coach Prime said that when they were evaluating transfer portal offensive linemen, they try to get like pro evaluations of these guys, and they feel like these transfers they brought in are pro prospects. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, based on what they've done in the past and based on the way they look, absolutely. I mean, every one of these guys that are coming in this semester, I mean, I think Houston's a bit of a question mark. But the rest, like Tyler Johnson and Khalil Benson, certainly did good things at good schools last year. The two guys coming from Houston did really well in our conference, so that's a good thing. Justin Mayers was a little bit lower level, but was dominant at that level. So I think there are a lot of guys. Yakiri Walker, I think, has to prove a little bit that he can handle the size and the mass of the guys at this level. I think the one game we saw him in Tennessee, he struggled a little bit with that. But so I think there are, and I think we could have 5 or 6 of them, frankly.
Obviously, Jordan Seaton in 3 years. Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe less than that. It's hard to say, but I don't know. You look at the whole crazy fiasco around Caden Proctor, and I don't see that happening with Seaton because he's a different kid and has a different relationship with Prime. But who knows? But yeah, there's a lot of guys on there. Just looking at Tyler Johnson and Khalil Benson and Justin Mayers, man, they look like it. Stand on the sidelines. So we'll see. Again, anytime you're scrimmaging with your own team, it's hard to tell, just one guy look good because the other guy looks bad. I don't know. We got to get a lot more practices and a lot more plays under our belt before we can really say anything. Phil Lodeholt said there's no starters, and I believe him, and I wouldn't have any starters right now. Somebody's got to go out there for the first reps, but he hasn't seen enough, and we haven't seen enough to really make any valuable judgments at this point.
Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support, but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com. We got a chance to talk to, moving over to defense, edge coach Vincent Dancy, who got promoted. He was on the staff last year, a former head coach at the HBCU level, and enjoyed some of the insights that he gave into his group. First off, he said that Arden Walker is not able to practice right now because he had hand surgery. And his face seemed to light up quite a bit when he was asked about Samuel Okunlola, just in terms of, seems like a transfer that's really hungry to learn. Does need to put on a little bit of weight, is what he said. He was asked about Quincy Wiggins and said that he's going to play both the 5 and the 3 technique. And so that's a process of getting him up to speed in both of those different roles. He talked about Kyrie Mann's the challenge they presented for him is, hey, we know you can rush the passer, but you need to be a guy we can throw out there on first down as well. And so
Right.
that's the challenge to get him to be a little bit more physical. But and this is a guy that I know you like, William. Tajay McCoy is continuing to kind of generate some buzz. We got it last year during camp, but they had more experienced guys. Jordan Dominic was in the program, and he didn't get on the field much and was able to redshirt because he didn't play in more than 4 games. And so Tajay McCoy is a guy that I think is starting to emerge as another guy in that edge group that could get on the field quite a bit this year.
Well, and then going back to Arden Walker, one thing I liked was I saw that cast on his hand, but I saw him out there working with Jordan Seaton a little bit on one of the videos, talk back, when Jordan went in the game, talking about, obviously showing him here's what a defensive end would do to you and here's how you counter it and things like that. And I did like that kind of leadership and the defense helping the offense and what have you. So I think there's a lot of pieces. I think that edge position is another one, like the receiver position, where there's a lot of pieces, but they ain't all available this spring necessarily.
Yeah. Like you said, BJ Green is a guy that's, we know is going to get on the field quite a bit for the Buffaloes this year. Another piece of news out of the first week of spring ball, Cormani McClain said, hey, I'm not transferring. I'm not transferring. So he was a little banged up and wasn't in the videos. And I think that's probably why there was some speculation. And there's a message board post on Florida State site. And then before you know it, that rumor is gospel in some people's eyes. And then fast forward a couple of weeks and we finally get clarification from Cormani that he plans to be a Buff. And so that was one of the other good things that came out of the first week of spring ball.
I think,
and William, sorry to cut you off. I think Coach Prime is what Cormani McClain needs. And it's good that he recognizes that, right?
Right. And I think that they have a relationship and, I don't know, when you're, a healthy relationship between an adult and a young person is going to have rocky moments. I mean, there's no harm in that, but it's always funny to me how things kind of blow up into things that aren't things blow up into things just because somebody mentioned it. So, like I was gonna say, hey, let's cause some sensation on here. I didn't see Brandon Davis Swain and Eric Brantley lighting it up in the first week. So must be something going on there, right?
I'm not throwing any gasoline on that fire. I will not participate in the drama. That is a 2024 resolution.
Yeah. I saw well, it's just sort of funny to me how things get started, there's little rumors or whatever, and then they take on a life of their own. And I guess it's better, it's better to have, it's trying to think how to say this, but I guess it's better to have guys like Cormani McClain where somebody else wants them than have a bunch of guys that nobody gives a damn if they leave or not, and I wish somebody would take them, So I think the more kind of players we get in the program like that, we'll probably have more anxiety about that, but that's the nature of having great players on your team is other people want them too. And nowadays, the way things work, you got to worry about it, I guess.
And just lastly, closing out my notes here, William, just to mention Demoy Kennedy is no longer in the program. It sounds like he's going to hit the portal once that opens up to non-graduates on April 15th. And then David Connor is not with the team this spring, but I did see him put out a post on social media with a Buffalo emoji. So I think that he is trying to work his way back into the program or get back with the Buffs. But with Demoy Kennedy, when you have speed like that in a linebacker, it's pretty darn intriguing. Remember when Colorado had Davion Taylor, and just to see him fly around, it's very aesthetically pleasing to brand of football when you can play sideline to sideline. But Demoy Kennedy was more of kind of a special teams guy so far, and maybe he would have developed into more, but that's kind of where he was coming off of 2023. And I don't know the particulars in terms of why it didn't work out for him this spring. He was with the program early in the winter during the strength and conditioning program, but what are your thoughts on him moving on or not being no longer in the program?
I think, I think we're at the point now where we just got to go with the next guy up, and we know we got to fill those linebacker spots, and let's go out and get those dogs that can play. I'm not sure that Des Moines Kennedy had proven to me that he can really be a difference maker at this level. He had more experience than Davion did, and did less on the field on a team that was not loaded with linebacker talent. So I don't know. Would I like to have him here getting better and making progress? Yeah, but I know the coaching staff has talked about they're going to go into the next transfer portal looking for linebackers. So let's go find guys that have proven they can play. One difference this season is we're bringing in dudes this year. Last year we were bringing in dudes that had potential maybe to play. Maybe they played at Alabama but hadn't gone on the field a lot, like Des Moines Kennedy. Now we're bringing in guys that were on the field who played a lot and did well, like a Chidozie Nwankwo, who's proven he can play the dang game at this level. Khalil Benson and Tyler Johnson, who've proven they can play the game at this level. So let's go find linebackers like that, and let's stop trying to convert safeties into linebackers, and let's go get the real damn deal, and let's get busy with this thing. That's my view on it.
So at Coach Prime's spring ball presser, he ended it by addressing a USA Today article that was written about do you have more notes over there?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question if you had an idea, and I don't know if you got an answer to this, but 3 practices in, I wonder if you had any feelings. I couldn't really tell from watching the few plays I saw what we're going to do offensively and defensively with the 2 new coordinators.
Yeah, they're trying to be shoot things from a standpoint that it's hard to really pick up on tendencies and all that stuff. So
that's pretty vanilla.
So we know that Shedeur doesn't like choice routes. He wants his receivers running a route when they get the play and they start their route, right? So that they are on the same page all the time. We know that they're not going to go as up-tempo as Sean Lewis did last year. And we know that there is an emphasis with Pat Shurmur, and I still 100% don't understand why they abandoned the run like they did last year. But there is a clear emphasis on that the offense becoming, more well-rounded, and we got a question about that. So we'll touch on that a little bit more later. But those are kind of the basics. But Pat Shurmur said, hey, even though I'm from an NFL background, we ran different personnel groups in there because of the rosters in the NFL. You don't carry as many receivers, so you're not going to go in 10 personnel like you do in college. And so it's not going to be this archaic NFL style offense that they're going to try to run based on what he was telling us. Did you have any other takeaways from what you expect this offense to be?
No, I mean, the few plays I could see, it didn't look a whole lot different, to be honest with you. I didn't really see a tight end out there, and I did a couple times, I guess. Now I think about it, but still the shotgun, one back, kind of like the same things. But last spring we saw a lot of run, then we didn't see it in the fall, so it's always hard to tell. I was just wondering if there was anything new that stuck out to you offensively, and I guess particularly on defense, with an entirely new defensive coordinator, in Livingston, that if there's anything that you saw that kind of gave you a clue as to what he's thinking.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because if you pick some stuff out and start broadcasting what CU's going to do, they're probably not going to enjoy that too much, right? Or not want to give as much access online. I don't know. It's kind of a tricky thing to answer. But Coach Livingston has a lot of energy in practice. That's one thing that I heard from multiple people, that he's flying around out there very energetic. He's kind of a different personality a little bit from Charles Kelly, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. Well, first time I saw him out there in the field, I was like, actually, the first time I saw him on a video was coming up and talking in front of the guys in the meeting room, and I was like, who's that kid? So he's certainly at the other end of the age spectrum and experience spectrum, but it was quite clear that he had energy, and one of his expectations was everybody gets to the ball, and he was really pushing that in the practices. So, that's always a good thing and always what you expect, but it's nice to see it, I guess. So.
Did you have any other notes? I was going to ask you about Coach Prime's presser real quick before we get into the BSR mailbag.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Did you get a chance to watch Coach Prime's message at the end of his press conference, addressing a USA Today article that over the fact that he does not do in-home visits?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everybody's seen that, and it's kind of crazy how that's developed into a thing too.
Yeah. So I did a couple radio interviews the next day, thinking that Coach Prime did a pretty good job of explaining why. And I even have some reasons on top of what he said in terms of there's a level of commitment that a prospect shows when he comes out to Colorado instead of just looking for a photo opportunity with a Hall of Famer. And, you know, but some people are angry about that. And it's strange to me. Like I was on Altitude Radio and Scott Hastings was kind of rude and said, "Does Coach Prime have a spell on the local media?" And was calling him lazy. And it's like,
Wow.
the end result is Colorado has the best overall class coming in to compete in 2024. When you look at future Big 12 programs in 2024 and going forward. And so I don't know, sometimes as you get older, William, you learn to work smarter than harder. So it's not really an issue when you're getting the results that they do. And it seems like he's put together a really good recruiting staff. They've gotten the results so far. So I really don't understand why it's such a big deal.
Well, as you might imagine, I have thoughts. So
Let's hear them.
I think there's a lot to it, and it strikes me as interesting. And like you said, it's odd to me that so many people are so mad about it. Who cares? If you don't like the team, don't like the team. What the hell difference does it make? And at the end of the day, he'll either win with it or he won't. So let's wait and see. So far, the results have been pretty good, but I think it goes back to Deion Sanders being Deion Sanders. And I think it goes back to some bigger issues, man. And I'm not afraid to talk about it. So I think, Deion Sanders has been very clear in his entire life about doing things his way. And that's what he teaches to his players is be you, do your things your way. You don't got to go along with the way other people do it. And, when Deion Sanders coming up in the late 70s and through the 80s and such, that wasn't comfortable for a lot of people for a black man to do it his way, and so he got labels like brash, which is, okay, that's code word to me, quite frankly. Another word I used to use in the South was uppity, but a lot of people don't like that. And there's not a lot of black head coaches to doing things. And so he's doing it his way. And they kept making comparisons to like Jim Harbaugh at Michigan and Steve Sarkisian at Texas. Well, first of all, those are two blue blood schools, and they're not going to hire a black coach. So let's not even talk about how somebody would do it there. And in a place like Michigan and Texas, you got literally unlimited resources to go out and recruit any way you want to. Colorado doesn't have that. And by the same token, Deion Sanders is an entirely different guy than Jim Harbaugh and Steve Sarkisian. People know who he is. He doesn't have to go sit in your house. But I think there were a lot of legitimate reasons why he doesn't do it that way, and it's working for him. But it just is odd to me that so many people are so upset about it. But I think it goes back to him being him and him saying, I'm going to do this my way. And that a lot of people are just not comfortable, with the black man who's got that much visibility doing what he wants to do, doing it his way. And they, and I take, all right, I'm going to make the connection. You usually prod me to it, but you take a Dan Lanning and you stick him in, and he's a nobody at Oregon. And he immediately, and I'm sure he's going visiting houses and everything, but he's got all that Oregon cachet and he's got all that Nike crap that he can take with him and everything else. He didn't have to earn it. Okay. So he can do it whatever way he wants to. And of course, he did it the good old boy way that everybody wants everybody to do it. But Deion Sanders can't get in the good old boy club because he's not the right type of person. I think we all know what I mean. So I think a lot of this has to do with backlash at Deion Sanders being his own person and doing things his own way. And I just can't understand any other reason than that, why it would be such a huge emotional issue for so many people that he does it this way. I mean, who gives a damn at the end of the day? If you sign the guys that you need to sign, that's what it takes.
He's also on Jimmy Fallon recently. He's on like Good Morning America.
Yeah.
And so he's got a reach that some of those coaches you mentioned, they have to get on an airplane because they don't have those vehicles in order to make an impression on a prospect and his parents. And another thing Coach Prime said is, look, we're doing mostly transfer recruiting. And it is true that you're typically, those transfer windows are so tight that you're if you're in the mix for them, you're getting them on a plane, you're getting them out for a visit. And so there's a lot of schools that aren't doing in-home visits with those transfers. And they signed 7 high school guys last year. And so, yeah, there's a lot of layers within this. And maybe if you don't cover college football recruiting or follow along with the process of it, maybe you just are ignorant to the fact that you can still get results when you're somebody like Coach Prime. And maybe just it comes down to ignorance, maybe.
Well, and I think also, it's like those guys that are in college, they don't live in their parents' homes anymore. You don't go to their parents' homes to meet them. They're at college. They're playing big time ball. To your point about Prime being everywhere. So the wife and I watched a fun movie last night. I think it was called The Underdogs, and it was Snoop Dogg. And it's not for everybody, but we were very moved by it, right? And right in the middle of it, there's Coach Prime. Right, because it's a football movie and he knows Snoop and everybody, all the famous people. And I was like, this guy, I just looked at the wife and said, Coach Prime's everywhere, man. He don't got to go to nobody's house. I'm watching a movie. There he is, right? And everybody knows who he is. It's not like you got to get him in to know what he's about. He's been who he is for 30, 40 years, So I think there's a lot of ignorance to it. I think the people that they're focusing on in high school are not necessarily guys who need to have that in-home visit. It's not 1985 anymore, people, and people are going to do it a different way now. And, at some point you just got to get over it yourself and be okay with it.
Yeah. And if you go to a bookstore, you might see Coach Prime. If you are watching commercials, you might see Coach Prime. He's like, to your point, he's going to be popping up in your life. These prospects are more exposed to him even without him doing those in-home visits.
The other thing that really struck me in the whole thing as it came out was how it benefits the rest of the athletic programs at CU. And I understand that the basketball team is using that money for their recruiting, and I don't know if any of the other programs are, but and I don't know how much he weights each reason he gives, but the fact that he's trying to save the school money makes some sense to me, because we are not a school with unlimited resources.
What are you looking for in April, William, after the Buffaloes return from spring break?
I want to see that intensity come along. I want to see them start to keep on developing the talent. See them keep fighting and really keep picking up the offense and the defense and sort of fleshing that out more. I think as we get closer to the end of spring practice, we'll see a little more of shuffling out of who belongs where and who plays where. And I think we'll start to see at, various positions, some guys that probably are not going to stick around after spring because they're not getting much look in spring. I'm not going to say any names because I don't want people to start running with it, because I don't know one way or the other. But continue to see that sort of development and that sort of intensity, I guess. And I don't know. It's spring ball, so I tend to not take it too seriously, take it with a grain of salt. But what I want to see is not see a bunch of injuries, clearly, and start to see some comfort develop between Shador and Shermer and things like that, and a little bit of chemistry with those running backs. And I'd like to, I guess one thing I always look for in the last 3 weeks of spring ball, or how it's going to play out, is the guys to pop out from nowhere, like guys that haven't done much, and see guys become stars in spring. And you never know whether that will last into the fall, but that's always a fun part of spring ball too.
Definitely. Well, let's jump into the BSR mailbag. We got a question from CD Tang 55. He asked, when Pat Shurmur says we will have a balanced offense, is he saying more runs and less throwing from Shador Sanders? Yeah, that's what he's saying, William. But I think there is a possibility to be much more balanced and for Shador's stats to go through the roof, right? Because you're going to have a more honest defense out there. And with this improved offensive lineman, as Coach Prime said, they have 8 new offensive linemen. He was asked how Shadur's health is doing. He says he's doing 8 times better, because that is how many new offensive linemen they brought into the program. So having less pressure and a more honest defense, and yes, you're going to probably have less attempts as a quarterback, but
Right.
that could end up being it should end up being a very great thing for this offense.
Yeah, I think it's one of those classic, less is more type of situations where last year we stopped running the ball entirely. We're throwing the ball 100 times. I just threw that number out there, but we're throwing the ball on every play, and the defense is just teeing off and sending everybody on the pass rush and, different coverages and whatever. So if we get the running game working, it doesn't have to be 50-50, but it just has to be a lot better than last year. All of a sudden things are going to open up, because it's going to hold linebackers for a second. It's going to hold safeties for a second. And the other thing is I saw a lot more of receivers cutting across the middle and getting the ball across the middle of the field in those first 3 practices than I remember seeing during games last year. So balanced offense, I think, is not necessarily limited only to runs and passes, charting runs and passes. I think Shermer, given his background, is going to do a lot more charting of things and have a better. I'd like to see them have a better grasp on their own tendencies and understand what it is that they are doing, so that they, one of the problems you get into a rut and you do the same thing over and over again. You need to see that and change it. But I think that balanced offense means a lot of different things. Not just, run versus pass. But as compared to last year, I'll be shocked if we don't see a heck of a lot more run. But as you say, ironically, more effective pass.
Yep, there you go. And we got a question transitioning, or I guess sticking with the running game here, from Valm42. He asked, do you think we will have 1,000-yard rusher in this new offense? So Coach Prime was asked about Alden McCaskill at his press conference, and he said positive things about him, but then quickly talked about Dylan Edwards, quickly talked about Savion Wilkerson, and also mentioned Michael Welch. Also mentioned that they're going to be players at the running back position in the transfer portal. His answer led me to believe that they're going to feature different guys. And so I don't know if there's going to be enough carries for one guy to get 1,000. If there is one guy that's going to get 1,000, I would think McCaskill's that guy, especially when you consider that Edwards is a guy they're going to try to get out in space and utilize in the screen game quite a bit. So those wouldn't be rushing yards. What are your thoughts are if I gave you 2-to-1 odds that they have 1,000-yard rusher this year, are you which side of that are you betting on?
I think they will. But I think it might be like, 1,001, or something right there. And there might be 3 guys around 800 or whatever. But I think you're right that they're going to hand the ball off. We're not going to see the days anymore, for the most part, of lining up in an I formation. The guy carries the ball 30 times a game. That's gone. So you're right on the money, I think, with will any one guy get enough carries in this offense, given the number of passes we're going to throw, given the number of guys in the running back room and the different things that they bring to the game. I think you look at those 4, I don't know a lot about Welch just yet, about his playing style or whatever, but I think
he's like a low center of gravity, physical bowling ball type of back.
Right, more like what Wilkerson, I think, brings to the game. I think, but maybe a little more of it.
I think a little bit more explosiveness too in that game, but now he's also a true freshman, whereas Wilkerson's got kind of that veteran savvy to him at this point.
Savvy and can anticipate where holes open, whatever. But I guess my point is that they're all different. It's not like you got 4 of the same dude, right? You got very different skill sets amongst these 4 guys, which allows you to do a lot of different things on offense. So it wouldn't surprise me a bit, to see a 2-headed thing kind of show up, or even 3 or whatever. I'd like to see him stick with a guy who's got a hot hand a little more this year than they did last year. But is there a chance for 1,000-yard rusher? I would say, yeah, but I would also say, maybe 1,000-yard rusher doesn't mean anything anymore. Like it used to be super important to your offense, and maybe it doesn't mean that much anymore, is what I see in the modern offenses and such, with the passing and spreading the ball out a little more.
McCaskill had 18 touchdowns, 16 rushing, 2 receiving his freshman year at Houston. So the touchdowns is the number I think that the Bucs really care about, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, clearly that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. People that talk about all the rushing yards or whatever, but if you don't score, it doesn't matter.
OMG, you're dumb asked, based on what he knows now, would Mad Max play Khalil Benson at left tackle and Jordan Seaton at left guard going into the season? You ever been
Well,
called Mad Max before? Is that a new nickname
no,
we need to
I,
create
I
on the
don't.
show?
I don't think so. Mad Max to me will always be, Max Rockatansky from the movie, but I'm not sure what he would do. They don't play this sport in Australia, so who knows? But to answer the question, I guess I asked Adam when I saw this question. Did I miss something? Did something happen? Because it's a kind of question. Would I play Khalil Benson left tackle and Jordan Seaton left guard? It's sort of a question that makes me wonder, did I miss something? Because no, absolutely, that would not ever cross my mind, quite frankly. I think right now that it looks to me like they're playing Benson and Seaton at the two tackle spots. But I think we're pretty loaded at guard. And I think the guys, the most impressive guy I've seen so far has been Justin Mayers. And I think it's Tyler Johnson playing that other guard. And we've also got Tyler Brown at guard. Kareem Harden can play guard. I think we got a wealth of riches at guard. And I don't think I would move Jordan Seaton in there, quite frankly. I think I've seen enough of him to know that he's going to be pretty special at left tackle. Will he start at that spot? Hard to say. But I think I might run with him and see how it goes, at least through spring. But I certainly wouldn't move him to guard. I don't think he's ready to play guard. I think he's a guy at 6'7", 320. He's not ideally built for guard. He's ideally built for tackle. So no, I guess maybe OMG, you're dumb, can come on the board and explain a little bit the background for his question, because I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Like you said, the depth right now is at guard, so you don't move either your top two tackles in there unless you could pull in some transfers from the portal that are good offensive tackles in the spring window, and if there's an injury or two at guard, and then maybe the picture changes a little bit. But as it stands right now, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think Loadholt is probably looking at all those guys at all positions to sort of see who can do what. Because ideally, you want to be able to, if guys go down with injury, you might have to move guys or whatever. So you want to see who can play both right side and left side, who can play inside and outside, and they're different positions, and not everybody can do all of it. So I would imagine, when Loadholt says he has no starters, he's probably also not solidified on who's playing what positions either. But I don't have any reason to move Seaton into guard.
Nelly Buff 2424 asked, what's the percentage that next year's starting quarterback is out of the transfer portal? Percentage, somewhere in the 60s, I guess, probably high 60s is what I would go with. But I'm not ruling Ryan Staub out. I'm just not, and I don't know enough, and we haven't got enough feedback about Walter Taylor and Destin Wade to kind of have a strong answer here.
Right.
3 practices in, but do you get Juju Lewis to commit as a 5-star quarterback? But he's undecided he's verbally committed to USC, but I think there's as good a chance he ends up at Colorado or Georgia as sticking with USC. So we'll see how that plays out. A lot of moving parts, William. Hard to put a percentage on it, but gun to the head, I would have it somewhere, I don't know, maybe 65%.
Yeah, I would say if I had I bet my last dollar on it, I'd say it's not somebody that's on the roster right now. I'd go that far, because if it's if Julian Lewis signs, I'll put my money on him. But like you said, with Shedeur gone, the floodgates are going to open in the transfer portal for guys to come play quarterback here, because everybody's going to know it's open. And I think it's I think you have to assume that's probably the case.
Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up here? I mean, could give a congrats out to the CU women's basketball team for reaching the Sweet 16 for the second year in a row. J.R. Payne has done an amazing job with that program. Tad Boyle in the Buffs men's basketball program win 2 games in the tournament for the first time since 1955. So some entertaining hoops that CU fans have been treated to here in recent weeks.
Yeah, it's been some fun times in basketball, I think, and giving everybody a little bit of something else to do besides fixate on Armani McLean and Jordan Seaton, and a little bit of a change there. So that's been a lot of fun. That women's basketball program, I remember when they were great, back
Seal
in the 90s.
Berry.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun to have them back up at that level, So it'd be, it's fun to have all of our programs doing well and see you being back on the map.
Yeah, skiing won a national championship.
Yeah.
And obviously cross country is great every year. So we probably don't pay enough attention to those sports. We got to talk about the things that move the needle from
Right.
a download standpoint. But no, there's a lot of really talented coaches at CU right now, and so that's fun to watch some of those other programs have success. Let's maybe catch up in a couple weeks once Colorado gets another week of spring ball under their belt.
Yeah, I mean, your comment about all the good coaches kind of jogged my memory into. I like what I've seen of the chemistry amongst the new football staff so far. Not that they're all new, but the various guys they brought in there seem to fit in pretty well, and I like how the O-line coach and the D-line coach are working together and kind of competing off of each other and things like that. So that's always an interesting thing to see to me. I'm glad that I think we're going to see a real benefit from the stability that Prime has been here for a year now this time around. And quite frankly, I think he learned some things, and he's a smart guy, and he does learn. And so I think we'll see some payoff from that as well. So I think it's exciting times. I think we're going to see some real fun recruiting coming up here with the portal opening up and stuff like that. So
yeah, and they've had some visitors on campus recently. We talked about Julian Luce. He was on campus for the second time. So hopefully you are checking out BuffStampede.com. We've got a thread on the Inside the Herd message board that kind of breaks down all the scheduled visitors, guys that have already been on campus. And we've been tracking those guys down as a network for updates afterwards. So it sounds like they'll sign more than 7 high school guys in that 2025 class. And they've definitely made some good early inroads. They don't have a commit at this point, but if they do what they expect to do on the field this fall, that's what you need to be focused. Like, you've got to recruit, don't get me wrong, but in terms of a fan and the patience level, like, that's, if they win 6, 7, 8 or more games this fall, then recruits are not going to, it's not going to be an issue bringing talent in, to reload in a lot of the spots. It's with maybe some guys, it's just kind of a wait and see of how this thing is going to shake out on the field this fall. But if they take care of business, they're going to land another top recruiting class without question.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no point in getting wrapped around the axle about it in March. I mean, it's way too early and too many things still got to happen. But like you said, I think, if they get 8 wins this year, they're going to have to be making some hard decisions and turning some guys away.
Yeah. Awesome, William. It's always great catching up with you. We're not in the same room, so you couldn't get in my face this show like the last one. All right. Appreciate you again. Well, we're going to try to come back in a couple weeks with William and do another show then. Thanks, everybody out there, for tuning in.